currency forward contracts versus currency option contracts. So in order to trade with our supplier in Switzerland to purchase vitamins, we're going to need to purchase the foreign currency that they use. We're a U.S. company. We use the U.S. dollar. Foreign company uses the Swiss franc, as they're located in Switzerland. So in order to purchase the foreign currency, there's an exchange rate between the U.S. dollar and the Swiss franc, which these exchange rates between foreign currencies fluctuate often, just as all other commodities and stocks go up and down as the market goes up and down. So one way to hedge against this is we can enter into two types of derivatives, either a forward contract or an option contract. And a forward contract is where we're going to enter into a fixed exchange rate at a fixed date in the future. So we would say currently it costs 98 cents on the US dollar to purchase 1 Swiss franc. So if we were to enter into a currency forward contract for the Swiss franc, we would agree to pay, say, 98 cents, say 3 years in the future at a fixed date, April 30th, 2022. This would mean that regardless of what the exchange rate is in 2022, we are going to pay 98 cents for each Swiss franc. And one big advantage of this is that the rate between the two currencies could increase. So the Swiss franc could gain in value, or the US dollar could lose value for whatever reason. The US has the 2020 elections coming up, and if there's turmoil in the markets because of unexpected results, or if US-China trade talks break down, or for whatever reason, the US dollar could lose value, the Swiss franc could maintain its value, and the exchange rate between the two could increase. So in that case, a currency forward contract would be very beneficial, because we would be able to pay the 98 cents or whatever rate we agree upon now, instead of the, say, $1.15 or whatever it increases to in the future. A disadvantage of the currency forward contract is that there's no withdrawal. Once you enter into that contract, you're committed to purchase the francs. We would be committed to purchase the francs in the future, 2022, regardless of what the rate is. So if the rate actually decreases, say to 90 cents, 85 cents for whatever reason, if the Swiss franc loses value, we would still have to pay that 98 cents. We wouldn't be able to just say, no, I'm going to go get my Swiss francs elsewhere because I can get a better rate. So that's the biggest disadvantage of the currency forward contract. With the option contract, it's not, we obviously have the option to trade the francs. It gives the buyer the option to trade the francs. And there's an expiration date instead of a fixed future date. So instead of saying on April 30th, 2022, we're going to trade this much, we would say by April 30th, 2022, we have the option to purchase francs if we deem that preferential to us. And a big advantage to this is, compared with the currency forward contract, we're not committed to the exchange rate at the time. So if the exchange rate has increased, then it would be beneficial to us to exercise our options to purchase at, say, 98 cents or whatever we agreed with the seller as the rate. But if the exchange rate is to decrease, as I talked about earlier, then we wouldn't be under obligation to purchase the francs at a less preferential rate. We could, in that situation, say, no, I can get a better rate in the market, and so I'm not going to exercise my options. We can just allow them to expire. So that's an advantage of the currency option over the currency forward contract. And another advantage is that it would be a possible investment tool. If the exchange rate increases, we would have the option to just exercise our options and immediately resell them at a gain. We wouldn't necessarily have to use them for the vitamins. We could actually just purchase them and resell them into the market if we deemed that preferential. The main disadvantage of currency option contracts is that it's not as easy to negotiate on them because the buyer has all of the exercise power and the leverage in whether and when to exercise the options. The seller is going to negotiate and push for a exchange rate that's more conservative, more beneficial to them. So we won't be able to negotiate as good of a price. Another disadvantage with currency option contracts is that we would have increased analysis and research costs. So we would have to spend time researching the data, making sure that we did want to exercise our options, or whether we didn't. And if we did, it would be a manual process of exercising our options. That a currency forward contract doesn't have all that research. It's just a contract that's entered into, and it's going to happen in the future no matter what. So that increased analysis and management is another disadvantage to the currency option contract. And so my recommendation is that we enter into the option contract because over the last 12 months, the exchange rate has trended down. I think that should give us some negotiating leverage with the seller, even though I mentioned that disadvantage of them having more leverage because it has gone down in the last 12 months. And the seller will see that, and that's something that we could bring up in our negotiations. I don't think we would have to settle for too high of an exchange rate in establishing our exchange rate and our option contract. Another reason I recommend we go with the option contract is because it gives us the freedom to choose whether to exercise. As I mentioned, one of the big advantages over the forward contract is that we're not locked into anything. We can withdraw, we can let them expire. And I think since the exchange rate has trended down, if it continues to go down, we're going to choose to let them expire. The only way the contract benefits us is if the US dollar loses a lot of value, or the franc gains a lot of value for whatever reason, and the exchange rate goes up. That's the only way the contract's going to benefit us. So if it continues to trend downwards, we're going to want an option contract because we're not going to want to exercise the options. And for the final reason is just that it's a potential investing asset to have the options, whereas the forward contract is not an asset unless the exchange rate increases quite a bit. The option contract could prove to be an investing asset because we could exercise our options whenever and just immediately resell them to the market at a gain. So for those reasons, I recommend that we enter into a currency option contract over a currency forward contract.